Hey, I'm Callan Morris, and you're listening to the HWY of Holiness podcast. Our mission is for you to leave feeling more refreshed, encouraged, and free than when you started listening today. Here, we want people to live emotionally, physically, and spiritually healthier lives, and to pair a deep scriptural knowledge with an intimate relationship with Jesus. Wherever and however you're listening, I'm praying for you. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the HWY of Holiness podcast. I am, as you can see, not alone on this podcast. I have my sweet husband and video tech personality here, Gabe, with me today. And we're just going to kick things off like we usually do. Usually I share a high or like a thing that's going well, and then kind of a rhythm or a practice that we're implementing. So without further ado, Gabe, would you like to kick us off with your good thing, your high?
This week I've been instituting motion design, learning motion design. It's a program that I learned 10 years ago when I was in high school, when I was a freshman in high school. So I don't know. It's something new. I'm always trying to learn stuff, do stuff that maybe I shouldn't be doing or should, I don't know. But I'd like to spend time just learning things that feel impossible to learn, that I just get good enough at it and then learn something new. So, but that's something I've been doing. That's my high right now.
I feel like that's your way.
My way.
I feel like that's something you're doing right now. Like you're implementing that practice. You're learning something.
Oh, what's the high? Oh, something good that's happened?
Yeah, something's good that happened.
Well, that is something. That is something good that's happened.
Okay.
Something good that's happened. I did go over to my friend's house, and Pastor Nick Spicer went over to his house, watched Dune 2. And I've just been talking about it. I've just been talking about it nonstop.
It's true.
Trying to get her to watch it. Normally, typically haven't been the movie buff, but that was something that's been fun. Really enjoyed that movie and that time. So that was a high.
Yeah.
That was better.
That was much better. Good job. You did both. Okay, now I get to share. I can't believe you didn't share our group high, our corporate high. We are buying a house.
I thought we were getting to that later.
No, we're getting to that now.
Yeah.
Surprise! We're buying a house. We had the appraisal done a few days ago, and we're waiting on that back, and barring that goes well, and we think that it will, we will be closing at the beginning of May, and then kind of moving in over that month. So really excited about that for a multitude of reasons. I feel like it would be a good thing to share. We can talk more about like kind of that journey and how that came about, because that's totally a God thing. I think that will will come up in our conversation. But so that's a good thing that's been going on, to say the least. We've had a lot of fun. There's been a lot of stress associated with it, but we've had a lot of fun, I think, dreaming about the space and what we're going to do with it. And of course, it's really going to have an opportunity to elevate the podcast and elevate the work that you're doing in video. So I think that it is a tool that God's going to use, not just a home for us, but it's a tool that God's going to be able to enable us to do more of what we feel like he's calling us to do. So I think that's good. My way, what am I doing right now? Gosh, I don't know. I'm doing the Bible recap in a year. I'm having a lot of fun doing that. I'm also watching Rings of Power, which is like the backstory to Lord of the Rings. And I just finished season 1, and I was not a fan of the twist, but we press on through season 2. I love Lord of the Rings. That's another one we're going to have to swap. You'll have to watch The Lord of the Rings, and I'll have to watch Dune.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into what we're talking about today. I wanted to have Gabe on for a multitude of reasons. I have a couple of questions in my phone, just kind of brainstorming things that I feel like are topics that would naturally kind of come up with interviewing my husband and talking about our story. But I think first and foremost, I really want to open the floor for you and give you an opportunity to share a little bit about your story and maybe our story and kind of start there. So,
Yeah. Well, we met a long time ago. This is weird.
Time ago.
This is kind of weird because I'm like telling you, I'm telling. Yeah. So, yeah, it was back in 2019. We were in college. We were young. We were going to Western Kentucky University. Go Tops. I didn't graduate. I'll just throw that out there. She did.
That was really kind of throw that out there for the people.
That was kind of the trajectory we were on in life at that time. Yeah, so we met. We were in much different seasons than we are now. We were prioritizing much different things, but we saw the good in each other somehow. But yeah, we were both the same age. We were both from here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and we didn't know one another. Never even. She says we crossed paths, but I'm uncertain about that. We kind of did, but
we have a lot of mutual friends, and social media was a thing. And I deleted my original Instagram account, so I don't have legitimate proof. But I'm pretty sure we followed each other at some point.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
That's not important.
We ended up meeting at Western, not even our freshman year. It ended up being our sophomore year, and she was in a sorority. She was in Chi Omega, and I was in a fraternity. I was in Pike. It seems like a very long time ago.
Yeah.
But that's how we met. She was actually, there was an event that was put on every year for Greek life, and she was the dance coach. She was my coach. That's how we met. And I was the best. Simply put, I was put in front and center on almost every dance.
It's true.
I don't know if it was because I was good or it was because she just, really liked me, but
a combination thereof.
Yeah, but that's how we crossed paths, and a lot has happened since then. That was 2019, and for me at that time in life, I was very much living in the world, partaking in the world. Very, very fixated on my perception to the people around me and people who really didn't even know me. I was so obsessive, just over a multitude of things. So, what kind of job I would get, who I was seen with out in public, what my body looked like. I was really just indulgent in the world, and that was that season of life, being in college, and it took some twists and turns to get out of that. And I will say, we're kind of just jumping right into the deep end right now. When I say twists and turns, I went through a lot of health problems when I was in college. I got into the gym and training. I wasn't always that way, but growing up, I played baseball my whole life, and that was what I loved, and that's what I really wanted to do in college and hopefully beyond. As a kid, you always have that dream of just, being an astronaut or whatever. And that was how I lived my first 17 years of life. And, it wasn't until 2-3 months out from graduating high school that I was like, yeah, like, it ain't gonna work out. I'm 6 foot, I have an 80-mile-per-hour fastball. Probably not gonna go to the major leagues. So anyway, I became obsessed with my body. I had to find something to fixate on and obsess over, and I lost my baseball. That was my obsession. And all in all, we know that none of the things of the world fill that void. I was really empty even when I had baseball.
Yeah.
But I got to college, and it got really magnified, and I jumped into the gym, and I was doing anything and everything when I first got into the gym. It was like, I just want to look different. I was so obsessed with looking different that I would do anything. So I, took every supplement under the sun. Anyway, long and short of that season of life is I ended up with different elements with my health, stomach problems, for a time. I was having like some heart palpitations and couldn't sleep, and I had things so out of line. And with that, I was in a fraternity, she was in a sorority, and it ended up pulling me out of college because I got really sick, and TMI, I was vomiting every day for about 2 months, and lost over 30 pounds. And it was about a month and a half. I lost like 35 pounds, and I was a junior in college. And at that time, it was like, I can't go back. I can't go to school. I'm more so like, I'm hoping I live, you know? I mean, that was really where we were, and that was just in our dating years. And, but yeah, in that was just where my headspace was. That was what I was prioritizing while I was in college. That's what was important to me. And when I saw Callan there, she just stuck out. Like, she stuck out because growing up, I grew up in the church. I'm kind of a Nepo baby when it comes to the faith. It was modeled.
Church Nepo
I'm a
baby.
church Nepo baby. It was modeled to me. And,
funny.
you know, hopefully there are no tears shed here today. But I credit my mom a lot for that. She set the precedent for me for a long time, just in how to pray and how to worship, and, you know, how to show up for others, and what the church is really about. Sometimes that gets lost in translation. It becomes a show, it becomes performative, it becomes all these things. And but she showed that to me. And so at the end of the day, I'm so grateful that the Lord never left me in the midst of that time, despite all those things that were idols in my life and I was worshiping. I was able to see her and see how she stood out and looked different than what felt like everybody else. I mean, she just was like glowing whenever I met her. I was wild about her. Like, I knew, like, deep down, like, when we first met, I was like, I'm gonna marry this girl. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy, but I was right. It worked. So that was just our time in meeting. That was kind of where college was. Long story short there. I could go on and on into all kinds of details, but needless to say, at the end of the day, we genuinely were both lost people.
Yeah.
We really had idols that were of the world, and we were very imperfect, but and we still are. Yeah, we still are.
Yeah.
But in that, we were able to connect and just start doing something together.
Yeah.
And that's what that was like. So.
Yeah, I kind of want to back up and talk about, kind of dive in. This is interesting. This is kind of going a different direction than I was anticipating it to go, but, you know, we prayed before we started this that the Lord would be, you know, guiding it. So I guess this is kind of what he wants us to discuss and talk about. But, you know, kind of listening to you talk about your body and kind of the gym and kind of what that meant to you during college and that season. Just hearing you talk about that, you know, that's something that I think unknowingly, like, we kind of connected over, because we were both struggling a lot with our image and a lot with our bodies, and or kind of, I mean, just kind of like gym obsessed, food obsessed, in different ways to start. I mean, for you, like, you are kind of in like the, I don't know, like the gym bro, like dirty bulk kind of phase of life, of like, cookout quesadillas.
It was bad. I was doing a lot wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, like, on the other end, you know, at that point, when we had met, you know, when we first met, I was just like, had just come out of like active binge eating, which the Lord really kind of delivered me from miraculously, really, before I came back to campus. Like, I mean, I definitely still struggled, but I was not having the severity of the binges that I was having over the course of the summer. But like, my body and my physical health was really impacted by that when we first met. So like, I was definitely very, very insecure in my body when we first met, like, very insecure. And kind of, I don't know, it was interesting because we were kind of both doing that, but it kind of worked. It was like almost like a way that we kind of connected, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but it was something that I felt like connected over instantly because we were both pursuing fitness.
One other thing
Oh.
that we connected over.
Oh, yes.
I gotta just rehash the story real quick.
Yes.
I won't divert too bad. But I was flirtatious, like I said, when I first saw her, she had this glow. I was like, I'm gonna marry this girl. And we ran into each other at the gym all the time. And I would come up to her on the treadmill. We've just been friends for like a month. And I'm hitting on her, respectfully. And I'm not crude. I'm not disrespectful. I'm just smooth. I think I still am a little bit. But I don't know if I was wearing Vanderbilt gear or what it was, but she was like, it kind of came up where I said I'm a Vanderbilt fan, and she thought I was lying. She thought I was a liar. And her dad played at Vanderbilt football, and she was raised up from infancy as a Vanderbilt fan, and as was I. And we grow up in a city where we can't find 2 more Vanderbilt fans within the next 10 miles.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't exist. So that was another thing that we bonded over outside of our bodies, was the fact we knew what suffering and humiliation and sadness and despair, we already knew how to process all those things.
Yeah.
And there's actually there's a slight genuine, it's real. It's a real thing. We kind of suffered, and she's made some posts about it on the page and stuff about being a Vanderbilt fan. But that was something we connected over outside of our bodies. And it was funny. That's when I knew it was meant to be, though. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a weird wink from the Lord. I feel like it was definitely one of those things that I was kind of taken aback by, initially.
We didn't believe one another.
No. But it's cool because, again, kind of talking about, have we met? Were we we were at a lot of the same games and in a lot of the same places growing up, from from children, from children.
Childhood.
From childhood. From children. From childhood, yeah. We were at a lot of the same games, and, he has a much better memory for rehashing a lot of those games than I do, but, that is something that we have.
I have very selective memory, especially with Vanderbilt. I watched a lot more losses than wins, and I can't remember half of them.
It's called blacking out from trauma.
Yes.
No. Okay, but I thank you for telling that story. Sorry. That was good. No, I liked it. It was good. It's important. It's true. I think it is important to know that God cares about the little details, the little things. I mean, it's seemingly small, but as far as for our marriage and kind of things that we have in common, watching Vanderbilt together, I could have watched whatever team you would have watched. I mean, if you were a UT fan, I guess I would have gotten over it, but
it's something we bonded over.
It would have been hard.
Unhealthily at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I always had kind of, it was something that maybe I wasn't actively praying, wasn't the most important thing, but it was something that was I remember at some point in my life writing a list of things that I wanted to have in a spouse, and I was like, it would be cool if. I think God cares about that. So.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But anyways, I do think we kind of unhealthily bonded over that, over health and body and fitness and all of that. So I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more with you and talk. I'm going to give myself an opportunity to brag on you a little bit in that.
Body?
Yeah, just health and fitness. So, the unhealthy part of you that was kind of, I guess, idolizing that at the time, led to your switch out of your broadcasting major that you had come into college with into exercise science, which was kind of, working in tandem with the deterioration of your body that, when you got sick and then COVID happens, and, I kind of want to start and give you an opportunity to talk about that journey, to talk about health coaching and kind of where that's fit in, and kind of how God has already kind of used what the enemy intended for evil for good. And then if you want to talk about the healing that we're still waiting on for your body, that's an opportunity. You can talk about that. But if it's too tender, we don't have to go there. But
nothing's off limits here. I'm an open book. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got into training in 2019, freshly. I was actually still in school. I was doing online schools. I went through the sickness, kind of rebounded, got my feet back under me. I was like, all right, like I'm gonna stay in school because I was always told like if you step out of school and you start working, like you just ain't gonna go back. So I was still doing what I could, doing online classes, and I figured why not become a personal trainer? So there was a gentleman at the gym. MGL Training is what the name of the company was, and still is. And his name's Miri Mustafa. He's an excellent coach in many ways. So if you have a young athlete, he was a guy who helped me get my foot in the door. Honestly, let me get in front of some clients and do my thing. But that's where it started out. Woo, I was not smart at that time. Just as far as, when you don't have experience in that field, you realize that like knowledge isn't everything in this field. It's really being able to be personable, understand that person's walk, their preconceived notion of things, and it's really just it all boils back down to communication and being able to understand them and push them and pull back, But so I got to learn that there with I had some interesting clients, like in great ways. Like they were atypical from people I would hang out with, or, they were just came from different backgrounds. My first two clients were both, one guy, one gentleman, he was from Jordan, and another woman I worked with was pregnant and she was from Mexico. And so I was just like immediately challenged. I mean, that is not the challenge you want to walk into. But I felt like I was able to kind of, take my lumps and learn a lot in that, because whenever you go into life with anything, you want it to go the way you want it to go. You want it to go seamless. You want it to go easy. You want to get the client that you're just gonna click with and just fully resonate with. And that's not how it started out. And I got to learn a lot about myself, how to approach people. And it was kind of short-lived there. I was there for like close to half a year. It was a weird time because I joined, and for anybody that is from Murfreesboro, it was in the MAC. Rest in peace, Mac.
Aw.
We miss you. We still love Avalon. It's kind of a love-hate, but MGL
Mac-a-lon.
MGL was in the MAC, and the MAC closed, so then it was a transitional period and stuff. And so it was just a weird time, and I was only there for a few months. Then I left, and ended up getting into bodybuilding coaching at Olympus. And that's where like stuff really took a turn for me. I realized that my love for training myself was like just withering, because at that point the clientele was just stacking. Like we trained people with 30-minute sessions, so it was just like that. And so it felt like a long day. I'd be there for like 4 hours, but sometimes I'd see like 12, 15 clients a day. Mm-hmm. But it was just like so going by so fast. I would just be so tired of it. I just didn't want to do it anymore. But that was a period of time for another like half year. If anyone knows about personal training and coaching, it's a tough business. Yeah. It's a tough industry, and it revealed a lot to me. I thought it was just going to be this beautiful thing where you just get to connect with people, you get to build them up, see them change. But then I realized that a lot of people aren't thinking the way I'm thinking. And not to say I'm better than anyone. I'm just the outlook of like wanting to genuinely grow and be better and be receptible to coaching wasn't there. And it was kind of it was this love-hate where like some people got it. It clicked with some people rejected it. Relationships were weird. And needless to say, that business pretty much went under because of some just, let's say, foul play behind the scenes with some of the head people of that company. I won't name them, but so I was deterred from there. I was like, I don't know if I can be in this industry. And I got connected with a gentleman who was in New Hampshire, of all places. I couldn't point it out on a map, but it was a gentleman named Matt Wilbur. Still work with him to this day. It was called the Fitness Rebellion, and I got hired the day we got married, basically.
Yeah.
Like we got married and we headed off for a honeymoon. Maybe we'll get to that story. That's a crazy story.
I don't even know.
But as we're heading off to our honeymoon, I get a message, hey, you got the job.
Yeah.
Things are going good. The Lord was he was working though, like for real, because
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was gonna do, and we were just married, and that's a whole story. But
I had a job.
yeah, she didn't have a job. But yeah, I've been with him now for almost 3 years, and that's just, it wasn't what I envisioned within the industry. I still thought it was going to be this thing where it was like, this is my career, this is what I do, this is who I am. And I don't think the Lord was going to allow that, because I was coming at it from a very unhealthy place. I think I was so infatuated still with my body, and the clientele wasn't coming in, and I couldn't make it a full-time thing. For quite some time, it wasn't even like a livable wage, but I was having a couple clients here and there. And
I want to pause you real fast.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that transition. Like, what was the shift for you? Because, I mean, I remember in the season, like, there was like a noticeable shift. I mean, I feel, yes, like you weren't enjoying your training as much, but you were also, because of the environment that we were in Olympus, where everybody is very obsessed with their physique. I mean, bodybuilding is kind of a dangerous sport to be around for two people, especially that had struggled with body image, and just kind of being in that environment that we were in, around a lot of people that were competing, but we weren't competing, but we were kind of almost like training in a building style way. And so I want to talk a little bit about that shift for you, moving to online coaching, which of course kind of opened up a whole new framework of fitness for you, whereas you were just focusing on the gym and in-person training. With online training, you are now in charge of these guys' nutrition and kind of talking with them, dialoguing with them on a day-to-day level, and talking about kind of like their life and their lifestyle, and kind of, obviously branching off more from being just like this guy that's like going to come in and like kick your butt for a 30-minute workout. You like transitioned into this almost like, life coach. And so, you still are kind of more of a life coach as well as with the fitness content. So talk about that shift a little bit, that happened internally for you, like kind of how you shifted out of like the mindset of making it about you and your body, and shifted it into like, I guess more like a health thing, like kind of how that shift happened in you, and talk a little bit about how that shift and like the in-person training to the life coaching thing, like that impact.
I'm going to preface this with God. God revealed some things about me and allowed me to look inward. Two, I listen to Kenneth Hagin a lot. If you're just getting into church, you just figuring out who the Lord is, Kenneth Hagin has some amazing messages out there. And I was in a place, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but I'm gonna answer the question. I'm weaving. Where I always thought everything had to be this hyper spiritual experience. And in one of his sermons, he said, we live on earth. Like, we live in the earth, and we know that the humankind fell, and we entered a place of sin, and so earthly advice is good too. And I'd say the best piece of earthly advice, and it is tied to spiritual too, but is your community and who you're directly around. And the more people you can get around, and the more people's perspectives you can hear, it can really open your eyes to what's going on internally, what's going on in your relationships. And that's where I want to answer the question now. Coaching some of these guys that are working jobs I could never even dream of. It was a scary situation. I'm 22, and my first client, Robbie Porter, I'll throw his name out there because we're friends. He was a pilot. He was a cargo pilot flying from country to country. And just connecting with him and realizing, like, I had this construct I created where it's like, you have to eat, X amount of protein. You need to train 5 days a week and you need to do this. It was this obsessive outlook of like what you had to do in order to care about your body and your physique. And I realized I was looking at it through that scope for everyone, myself. And as I started to connect with some of these gentlemen, I was like, I can't move them forward with this outlook. And then it just forced me to look in. I was like, do I need to walk through life like this? Like, is it this important? Do I have things out of alignment in my life? And that was just revealed to me. I mean, I like to say the Lord revealed it to me through other people that I got to talk to and build relationships with. So that's really how it happened. Now, tangibly, I know you're a very tangible person. Like, that kind of sounds like some mumbo jumbo that's nice to hear. Like, I connected with this guy and he just sold me something that just changed my life. For me, like, tangibly, I'd say something that is super important is being on the same page with your spouse. I've worked with a lot of people who are in marriages and relationships, and they don't see eye to eye on nutrition or training, and one person's like deterred one way or the other. Typically the person who's, someone's going to pull someone down typically in that situation. And so for Callan and I mean, that's something I think we've kind of worked through over time. Like, she had things she wanted to implement in early marriage, and I was like, I'm not going for it. Like, we need to eat, whole foods that are clean and organic. And I'm like, no, I want beef and rice. That's where I was. But you have to have an openness, and I think being able to work together just started to shift things. And I started to feel a lot more clear mentally, more clear physically. Just, it was different. And that just allowed me to transition. So the community, the people who are around you, what you allow yourself to be receptive to, and just recognizing there's not one way to live life, and you can evolve. But it first came to saying, okay, I have a problem.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get to that place where you recognize internally there's something that needs to change. I have a willingness. I don't really want to, but I know I need to.
Yeah.
So just being around people, if you are open and receptible, you can break out of habits. You can form new ones. So yeah.
I think, like, what's cool about listening you share that is, I just remember, like, in the early days especially, you were kind of like, how do I do this? It's a shift, People even still, I feel like when you share that you're an online health coach, they're like, what does that mean? And I mean, I think you've grown tremendously at your ability to kind of see the men where they are and meet people where they are, and get them moving towards their goals and get them feeling better, and I feel like you've kind of acquired that skill over time of just kind of figuring out, what works, and it, now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, like, I think that work has changed you, and I think that's a good reminder for me, because you didn't have all the answers. You're not on paper maybe even like the most knowledgeable guy in the room. There's the
debatable.
Okay. No, but I mean, as far as like from a resume perspective or an educational perspective, but you had a willingness to listen to these guys and have a willingness to listen to them, to hear their stories, and to find ways to problem solve some of these things that are happening in their life. And you didn't start with saying, I'm the expert in the room, here I am, listen to me. Like, that's not the approach that you took at the beginning, and it's not the approach that you take now. And I think because of that, like, you have been changed by that work, which goes to show you that I think a lot of times it's easy to put these people that we're working with, or that are like these deemed experts, like on pedestals, even like from like a pastoral perspective, like these people that like put them on pedestals, that their faith is like the strongest and the best. And I think a lot of times people that are in those positions of leadership are looking at themselves and being like, like help other people? Like, I don't know how I do that. I mean, that's kind of how I feel even just with the podcast, like me, like talk about things, share things. Like, what do I have to say? And we've, of course, had a lot of like behind the scene conversations about that. Like, what do I have to say that has value? And you just stepping out in faith and putting yourself in a situation of like, God's given me these people to steward, and I'm just going to serve them well and love them well and give them what I have. Like, ultimately, like you have received a lot from that. Not obviously it's been a blessing for us financially, but you have received a lot, and it's done a lot of things in you as far as your physical health journey, which is so cool to think about. But I think it all comes back to your willingness to have your mind changed.
You have to have humility.
Yeah.
And humility is like a muscle in a way. I mean, we're going to be confronted with opportunities to be humbled. And a lot of people can't bring themselves to get to that place because it shows that we don't know everything and we may be wrong. But that's always step one. And you really get to make that choice each day. Like, you need to renew your mind on the Lord each and every day. And that's what allows you to show up and go, okay, I'm really not an expert and I never will be. And really, if you walk through life with that mentality, I feel like I'm not an expert and I never will be. Not in a degrading way, but just in a humble way of like, there's always more to do. There's always more to learn. And yeah, I mean, you have that choice. Yeah.
You know, and I some of the people that I admire the most in our direct community like have that mindset. Like, I think of many people at our church that have that mindset. I have a Bible study or a book study that I'm doing with women that are a lot older than me. Most of them, I think, have grandkids, actually.
Your age.
What?
Your age.
Yeah, my age, the age of my soul. But yeah, no, but listening to them, the knowledge and the amount of life experience in the room, but the humility and the wonder that they have when they read the word, like, I read this and I caught something that I'd never caught before, simply because they have the humility within themselves to say, I've lived a lot of life, I've seen a lot of things, but I don't know everything, and I'm going to continue to go to the Word. And God, I just think, continues to pour out knowledge and discernment and fruit into those people's lives that have that attitude. And that's something that I've seen. I think that you are a very good candidate to talk about that just in general, because I have two things I want to get to. I have like two trails I want to go. So the first trail, kind of off that point, is I want to talk about your job as a videographer and how like God navigated that story and how you applied that principle of like humility and learning things and how that allowed you to get the opportunity that you're in now. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
And then I want to switch gears and go back, because you mentioned like community, people that you're around, and I want to talk a little bit about, the change of our community, college community, what that looked like, first married community, what that looks like, and then kind of the season that we're in now with community.
Yeah.
So those are the two segues. So first, let's go ahead and talk about your
video.
Yeah.
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 Well, first off, let's give props to our videographer today. It's me.
I feel like meme, like just like
that's how hard my job is, right? Yeah. Really, the hard stuff comes after this. But yeah, videography. It's a funny story, I guess. I mean, it's cool. It's a cool story. Whenever I was in high school, went to Seagull High School. Awesome high school, Go Stars, P2 Bass. It was really for a public school, it was a great school. And we had, I don't know what elective, whatever our career path was.
Yeah.
And whenever I was 14, I don't know, I walked into this room and it was a digital arts class is what it was. And I I was just fascinated by the technology and the gear all the stuff that was in there. I had no prior experience other than like I did some edits on my phone when I was in middle school. Like I had people like it's actually kind of crazy. I like low key had this business back when I was like in 7th grade or 8th grade, something like that, where I made tykes. It's gonna sound crazy, but like
I've never heard this story.
yeah, no, it was a thing. It was a thing back when I was like 12, 13, where like it was basically just cartoon figures of yourself, and people loved them. Like there's this account. It's called My Tyke,
I have no idea what you're talking
and
about.
all I would do was I would go to My Tyke and I would screenshot. Like I would have people, local people, friends and stuff, be like, I need you to make me one, and I would just go find a tyke that looked like the person, and I would go in and recolor it in like Photoshop, and put a like different logo and change the uniform and just color over it. So I did that, and that was kind of my first dabbling of like editing and stuff. But I got into that class and I really wasn't that good. I got in the class like low key, like that was the class I was the worst at, but I was fascinated by just like, illustration, graphic design, all this stuff. And so I did it for 3 years in high school. And I went to college. I went into broadcast journalism. And at that point in time, I was beyond the graphic design and stuff. I was like, I don't know if it's for me. I mean, it's interesting. And I was like, I want to do sports talk radio. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be Clay Travis. So if you don't know who that is, look him up. I probably don't really want to be like him nowadays. He's changed, but real smart guy, could articulate anything and just convey it in a way that's just interesting. I mean, he could just talk about anything. And I was like, I could just sit and talk all day about sports. Like, I love sports, blah, 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 whatever. But anyway, I ended up getting away from it. Obviously, I dropped out of broadcast and journalism, went down the exercise science path, did all of that. And I still had like this little shrinky dink, that's a word, that's a term, look it up, camera. It was a Canon M50. And it sucks. Like, it's a terrible camera. In modern time, it's like an awful camera. But I started wanting to use it again, and I started to pray about it 2 years ago. I started to ask the Lord, like, why did I spend all that time just trying to learn those things and apply them? It just felt like such wasted time. Like, it was 3 years in high school, it was 2 years in college. So, I mean, for 5 of my last 7 years or whatever at that point, I was trying to learn something to do with whatever, cameras, graphics. And so I just started asking about it. I was like, Lord, why am I thinking about this? Why do I still care about this? Why did I spend all that time doing it? And I kid you not. I mean, it sounds like a fake story, but like I prayed, and it was within a month at that time in life. We won't even talk about the job I was working. It was crazy. I was doing something I hated. And it was like a month later, like Team George Weeks Real Estate hired a gal to come in and do their social media, do their video work. She came in for 1 day and left. 1 day, left. And then it was like, we need someone. And they actually asked Callan. They were like, because Callan's smart, she can help. But she was like, actually, Gabe would probably know something. And I come out there and do my thing, pull out my camera, terrible camera, and shoot some footage and get back and edit. I haven't edited in years. And I'm telling George, like, I can do this. Yeah, like, I can do this. And I got back, and it took me like 8 hours. It took me 8 hours to edit like a 1 minute video. But I just had this belief and this confidence that since it was placed on my heart, my mind, I was praying about it, like this was supposed to just happen. And it did. Long story short, like I ended up getting hired part-time initially, and I was doing all the video work for Team George Weeks, and then they brought me on full-time. I'm very, very grateful for just that role and having that opportunity, because it's something I'm really passionate about, I really care about, and I just have an eye for. And so, yeah, now I'm doing it full-time. It's awesome. I love it. I've spent a ton of money on equipment and things. if you're in that sect of the job world, you understand it's a lot of money, but it's awesome. It's something I love, and it's so fun, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change how anything's gone down, and I hope that more comes of it. You know, I hope that I have an opportunity to really impact people and touch people through the skills I have, and continue to cultivate. Like, it's something that I know the Lord has called me to. So like, now I gotta do some of the work. You know, I really gotta get uncomfortable. Like, I think every single person has an opportunity to truly do what they're called to do, but we gotta get a little bit uncomfortable. And that's typically what he's asking of us. And that's what it took. So yeah, that's how I got into video. That's how I'm doing it now. And I wouldn't change anything about it. And the second part was we're backtracking, throwing it in reverse.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about community. And maybe I'll share like a little bit about where we were maybe in college. I mean, you kind of talked about it in your story. I'll kind of head up that, and then we can kind of popcorn back and forth about it. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned just the value of community. I mean, even the value of family. Like, obviously, your mom and her faithfulness and her testimony was massively impactful for you. So like who you're around and the people that you're around really matter. And I mean, obviously in college we had talked about it. We were in Greek life. I've talked about it in my story too. You know, not the best environment for growing in your faith. You know, I think I'd taken on the approach of like, I'd wanted my sorority to be more of like that tight-knit, like shared valued community. And what I got was really more of a mission field. And then for you, like that was just not really the, you know, kind of where you were at. That wasn't really your frame of work. And so, you know, we really struggled, I think, in our dating years because of that, because our community was definitely not setting us up well for dating as a young couple, for really like, I mean, pushing us towards the things of God. I think in a lot of ways it was, for both of us, I think it was actively pulling us away from maybe some of the things that God, you know, wanted us to do and wanted us to be as we were dating. Yeah, do you have anything to add about that season of life for us?
I mean, there's an amazing earthly quote that just says you become a product of your environment. And I was in an environment. Now, this is what I'll have to say. You know, in that time of life, there were a ton of great guys I was around. Like, there really were. There were a lot of great guys that I still do genuinely have love for, and I care for, and I want them to succeed. And, you know, but sometimes in order to grow and get getting uncomfortable was getting out of it. Like, I didn't want to. Not really. I mean, I was living in the world, and that's what that was. But sometimes you know that you're called to something else. And I didn't go about it perfectly. Like, I removed myself like overnight. Like, I was with these dudes for months, and then it was just like, all right, I'm out. Sorry.
Well, and that's another thing that I wanted to point out is COVID was the way, like that was the ticket out for you. And if COVID had not happened, I don't know if you would have been able, like, I don't know if you would have withdrawn yourself from that situation. I don't, you know?
COVID perpetuated a lot of odd things.
Yeah, it did. I mean, as much as it's weird to reflect on now, like, I do think there was a lot of, like, good life change that happened for us as a result of that time. Even though it didn't feel like it in the moment, it felt like we were kind of being robbed of something, and I think I still feel that way in some respects. Like, we were robbed of a lot of our collegiate experience, but I already think God was kind of looking ahead for us. I never felt like we were
at home.
At home. Yeah, I never felt like I was at home there. I mean, I think like you were saying, there's a lot of amazing people that we met, a lot of people that I love and wish well for and don't blame for,
Yeah.
things. But just to know that, I don't know, God was orchestrating kind of a way out for us in the midst of something that kind of forced us, like kind of forced the hand. COVID kind of forced your hand for sure. But yeah, so, and then, okay, so you're, I finish up school and move back home. We're both back in Murfreesboro again. I make the decision to drop out of school where I was at, and we very swiftly get engaged and then get married. And I want to talk a little bit about that first season of us as newlyweds and young married couple, and kind of talk about the way that we went about things and kind of for community. So
yeah, that happened really fast. So she graduated a year early in undergrad from Western Kentucky, and then enrolled at Trevecca Nazarene to be a counselor. That was what she was doing. I was lost. I wasn't doing that. I was like, that was when I was in bodybuilding, personal training, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to figure it out. And
that was a real estate school stint too.
Yeah, there was a lot. Yeah. And but yeah, no, she dropped out of school and we got engaged pretty briefly upon that, and she moved out and moved into an apartment, and we got married. We got married a month and a week after we got engaged. Not ideal, worldly. I wouldn't advise people to do that.
Yeah.
Circumstantially for us at that time, it's just what we were being called to, and we knew it. And part of it was uncomfortable, and there were probably things we could have done differently in hindsight, but I don't regret it. And so we got married quickly. I will interject with the story now of the honeymoon.
Oh, yes.
We got married and we went on a honeymoon, and like, mind you, just context, like, we got engaged, we got married. This wasn't planned out. Like, we're not getting to go to like the Bahamas. Like, we going to North Carolina. That's where we're going. We're going.
I still don't know why we picked that. Like, what a not.
We should have just gone to Gatlinburg. So
what? Anyway, okay.
we went to Asheville, North Carolina. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, it's the worst trip that we probably ever been on. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
Like, we got to this Airbnb and it was like marketed as private. It was not private. We got to the Airbnb. We're in the basement of a house, and someone is above us. Like, and they didn't get home until like 11 o'clock at night. Like, we've been there for like 5 hours, and all of a sudden we're hearing footsteps.
No. For context, we're not in Asheville. We are in the Murfreesboro equivalent from Murfreesboro to Nashville. We are in Weaverville. When we drove up,
look it up,
to Weaverville, do you remember this? I remember this because I was horrified. The first thing we see when we get to Weaverville, we like just pass the sign, is a man with no shoes, no shirt. I think he was just like
gas station.
At a gas station, like walking in. I think he was just chiefing a cigarette out there, or whatever it was. And we were like, oh no. And then we pulled up to where we were, and we looked at the place, and I remember I cried. I pulled up and I just cried, because I was like, remember there was a chainsaw in the garage, and I was like, someone's gonna come home and chop us up in a chainsaw, and we're like gonna be thrown out here in the middle of the woods.
And how do you think I'm feeling? Like, I'm the husband here. Me and my wife just had a shotgun wedding in a backyard. Now we're having the worst honeymoon like you can have.
We sound like such rednecks.
But I'm like, all right, well, anyway, so we did that, and we were happy to get home. We got home, had some like skin problems from the place we were staying in.
I got a rash. I broke up in a horrible rash.
As soon as we finally get back home, we're having to go to not the emergency room, but a clinic, and do that. So anyway, that was our introduction to early marriage. It was quick. It was scary. It was whatever. I was honestly so delusional though. I was fully delusional. I was not like, I did not feel the weightiness of life at all. I was just like, it is what it is.
I will say we had in the midst of that, we had a lot of fun, like going to try new restaurants and stuff. We had a lot of fun with the restaurants and the food. We had a lot of good food.
Yeah.
But Asheville's a very spiritually dark place. And I can only imagine, like, after the wake of the damage that they just had as well, like not too many years ago, or I don't know, months, years. When was that? When the flooding in Asheville? That really wasn't that long ago.
Months.
A few months ago. Yeah, I can only imagine, like, kind of how it feels now. But it was very, and we kind of felt, as much as we didn't feel like the weightiness maybe of like, oh, marriage, it's going to be hard or whatever.
Yeah.
I think we felt the weightiness of like the place that we were in.
Yeah.
And we were making the most of it. Like, we talk about it now, but like, we were also.
We were pouting.
No, we were glad to be
Yeah.
married. We were glad to be married.
We were happy, yeah.
Yeah.
We were excited. There were a lot of unknowns that we had yet to confront.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got back, and so from there, just early marriage, and really like, we were kind of balling, to be honest. Like financially, like for early marriage, like we really didn't realize like how good of a spot we were in. Like we did not attest enough goodness to God in that season.
I'm hitting the pause button to interject. I don't know if it was necessarily that we were rolling in it. It was not that situation. It was just we were not stewarding our finances. We didn't know how to do that. And we were just kind of like living willy-nilly, not really recognizing.
No, yeah, I was just saying like what we got to start marriage with, like in our account, like we were in a good spot. We didn't know it though.
Well, but we chose to do things the way that we did from a financial perspective so that we would have, we chose to focus. And I do say, I mean, I think pat ourselves on the back a little bit with this. We chose to focus on the marriage and not on the wedding.
Yeah.
Which I think is a big tip for people that are thinking about getting married or engaged. I mean, yeah, like I'm not saying you have to do what we did and get married in a backyard and like skimp out on a lot of the things that we.
But if you do get married in a backyard, make sure you have a Dr. Michael Courtney
Sure.
in your life.
Yeah.
Because he made it amazing, and he was awesome in so many ways.
Well, yeah, and I'll get on my soapbox about him here in a minute, but yeah, no, I think focusing on the marriage, which, you know, at the time it's funny because Dr. Courtney was is the teaching pastor at Family Worship Center. He's also the former director, founder of Branches Counseling Center here in Murfreesboro, and we were connected with him because of your mom, because of her connection at Family Worship Center. And we were looking for someone to do premarital with. We knew it was important because we knew that was something that we were like, we want to do that. This is what it means to focus on the marriage part and the relationship part and not on the wedding part. And he was a lifeline. I mean, he was a lifeline for us. I mean, I don't think you never do. You're never really ready for it. You know, I don't think there's like a time where you're like, I'm fully capable of being a wife, or I'm fully capable of being a husband. I'm fully capable. I understand what marriage means. Like, no, you don't. You don't, because you haven't been married. Like, you don't really not. You don't know what you don't know. And that's why I think it's so important to have someone like a Dr. Courtney that's in your corner, that's helping you walk through things, and that's kind of preparing you for that next season. And that's what he was for us. And what's crazy is we'll talk more about like our community, but I mean, he was not, the only connection he had to us at that time was just that you were Shannon's kid. Like, there was no reason for him to give of his time and of his knowledge and of his wisdom to us other than that. And he married us, and yeah, we're thankful for his influence today, which I guess, do you want to talk about that? Like,
it ties into community.
Yeah.
It ties into who you put around you. And that's to get into the challenge of early marriage, or it's really beyond marriage. It's being a young adult. It's being, heck, it's an old adult. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're always striving to have people around us who are inundated with the Word and listening for God's voice, and it's not always easy to find. And Cal and I have discussed that. Just, who's in our immediate circle, like who's pouring into us. It wasn't this thing of like I'm better than everyone, but it was definitely a challenge at this age of being like, I feel that a lot of people my age I either pour into, or it's just kind of, that type of relationship's non-existent that I'm in search of. But a good starting place, we're referencing Dr. Michael Cordy. You probably have no idea who he is. I mean, there's a good chance you might not know. But surround yourself with people, with seasoned saints. Like, surround yourself with people who can first pour into you and fill you up and teach you how to approach your relationships and approach, really the most important relationship with God. So find, those older people, and, the challenge from there is he's going to be finding people that can also pour into you that are your age, and that you can have that conversation, relationship of such depth that we really desire. But it's also healthy to not have every single relationship be something that you're pouring into or getting poured into. I think I said that correctly. But there's going to be people that you are going to pour into. Like that's a part of relationship building. There are going to be some people who, it's not that you're better than them, but they're in a different season of life that maybe you were once in. And that's how it is for the people that are pouring into us. Like, they're not better than us. They've experienced more life, and they've had a longer walk with Christ, and they have great worldly advice and great spiritual advice. And that's probably the best thing you can do in early marriage, is get around those people, find those people, and be a sponge. And that ties back all the way to the beginning of this episode, when just talking about humility and having that ability to just have some openness, be receptible to what people have to offer to you.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
Yeah, and I'll say, as far as from a community perspective, you're saying like, hey, like find those people. And I think for a long time we were like, what do you like? Where, like where? And I mean, obviously church and early marriage, we're in a unique situation where we didn't really want to pick either of the churches that we grew up going to as children, because we didn't want to choose sides. And so we kind of chose a different church, and that had its season and its reason and its purpose for like the time that we were, in early marriage. And I think we tried. I mean, we were trying. Maybe we weren't giving like 110% effort as far as trying to get involved. But I mean, I tried to get on the serve team, and we had gone to a couple of groups, and we're trying to kind of put ourselves out there, which is, getting uncomfortable, kind of what you were talking about. But I remember for us, so then we felt like the Holy Spirit was like, you gotta go. Time to go somewhere else. And we just knew that. We knew that the Holy Spirit just had a different place for us, a different assignment for us. And so we, set out on a journey to find what that was. And, I'll tell the story very quickly, because I think we're already probably like going so long. We have so many stories. We could do like 5 million.
We'll just have to have another episode.
I know, yeah. But essentially, when we were getting married in early marriage, this is another tie to our church now, and just shows the power of community. I just think it shows the power of community, just because there were people that loved your mom so much, they showed up for us, which like that's so impactful when you have a kind of community that will show up for people. Like, it's impacting people you don't like, secondhand impact. Like, we got the secondhand impact of that. And I remember at our wedding shower, there were several people from our current church that showed up at our wedding shower, but when we didn't even go to church there, and namely like our pastor and his wife and their kids showed up for our shower, and we did not go to church there. Like, they did not know us from Adam other than your mom. And that was like impactful. And I remember it's not the reason why we go to church there because they showed up for our wedding shower. We go there because the Spirit's there and the Word's taught, and that's why we go there. But when we were thinking about church leadership, what kind of people, like, you know, that was so important to us, like going to like a humble leader that was really like after the things of God. I immediately thought about Pastor Bryce and Sarah and how they showed up for us in that moment. And I think that was like a thing of like immediately that's how like our church kind of dropped into my spirit when I thought about them. And of course, then also Dr. Courtney as well. And just to come full circle to that, where we joined the church, had a lot of like very powerful, like emotional services. I remember early on, like God was doing a lot of stuff in us, kind of finally like, we finally got that conviction of like, okay, we can get in here on Sunday and get in and get out, or we can like try to make relationships and try to make this a community. And that's what we started doing. That's when we started serving. That's a whole story about like, and then it was like, in light of doing that and actually applying ourselves, actually going to groups, getting uncomfortable, doing things we didn't want to do, being consistent and showing up in the things that were like outside of just the Sunday as well. That's when I think community really started to click for us, and we started to feel known by the church. And in that place, that's where like community can really operate, because, you know, community really like requires discipleship, like that kind of picture of the fountain that you were talking about, people that are older that are pouring in, people that are, you know, your age and that are kind of in similar seasons to you. That's important. That's been something that's been harder at the church that we're in, but something that we're, I think, actively working with right now with the group that we're a part of, and kind of trying to like fill that, make a space for people our age that haven't really had a space in a while, I think, at the church that we're at, which is really important, because that's an important component so that you can then pour into people that are younger, either by age or in the faith in you.
Yeah, our pastor, he has a great phrase. It goes for anyone, any age, no matter who you are, is to join a church and get plugged in. Like, just the importance in that. It offers, you have to have a bit of selflessness, and you're going to do some things that maybe aren't fun and you don't want to do. But in that, the community that comes out of it, the growth that comes out of it, is so vital for your growth.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think the last point I'll say, and just kind of punctuate and kind of end this conversation, is with community. I think for a while we really thought we were kind of like giving it our all. And I think there was a whole nother level of commitment there that we didn't have. And I think even still, like, it took several months of us serving, of us showing up, of us getting uncomfortable, saying hi to people we hadn't said hi to before, having conversations, challenging ourselves not to just like run out the back door whenever we were done at church. It took several months of that before we really felt that confirmation of like, this is our church family, this is our home. And I think the fear, I remember in those like, I remember we were really struggling with some things and we were like, we needed the community then now, and we didn't have it. And I remember being like, you know, we're doing the thing, like we're showing up, we're doing the thing, but why do we feel like we aren't known? Why do we feel like we don't have community? And sometimes I think it really just takes steadiness and faithfulness over time to build that. And so I think what I want to say is, to the person or to the people or to the couple that feels isolated or lonely or feels like they don't have community, or maybe they're going to church consistently, but they don't really feel like they have people that would show up for them or that know them on like a deep level. If you don't have that, it's not just going to come to you neatly wrapped in a box. I don't think that's how God intends for his church and his community to be. Now, it's always nice when those people seek you out. I think about Chad and that day that he invited us to the group and what that meant to us at the time to be invited in, even though they're people that were kind of in a season that was older than us. When we went to that first group, we met like our good friends now, Jordan and Dylan, which we were going to meet, but that was the first time we got to sit down and talk to them for the first time. And it was all because he recognized that we were new. He saw kind of our general age and invited us in. And it's always nice. I think I always try to have that approach of like, I want to be that person at church. Like, it's not enough for me now that we just like have our community and we have our friends and we're good. Like, that's not enough for me, because there's always us, you and I, that are on the outskirts of that are wanting to be invited in. So I think it's important to be that person, but as much as those people, you might be waiting to be invited, like, you also can just put yourself in those situations of having those conversations and getting uncomfortable. And I just think God honors that. Like, he honors you getting out there and trying, because it's important to him too. Like, he loves his church and wants you to be an active member in it, and I think he wants us to love the church in the way that he loves the church. Like, he loves the church, and he wants us to feel the same way about the church too, which can be hard, I know, for people to hear, but yeah. Well, this is a great conversation.
Had fun.
I'm kind of nervous to look at this and see how long it is.
Oh, this is long. I know this is long.
But it's so good. Maybe
Good.
we could like even split it, maybe.
Are you wrapping it up? Are you good?
Yeah. Gabe, what would you like to say to the people in this final episode? Final thought.
Humility is important. We've covered that base.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, we're called to love others. We're called to love God with all of our heart and all of our might. And those are the important things, and the rest will fall into place, and it probably won't be on your timeline or just or on your accord. But God is working all things out for your good, and it's important to believe that and operate in that. And anxiety, fear, doubt, I've had my bout with it. It's all from the enemy, and you have the authority to speak to that, and you have an opportunity to walk in newness of life each and every day. So I hope that resonates with you. I hope you take that and apply that. You can apply that today, no matter who you are, no matter where you're at. The Lord loves you. He sees you. He's walking with you. And there are people in your corner that are a call away, a text away, that are open to doing life with you and loving you well. Yeah. And if you don't have that person, then I'm here for you. You can find my Instagram. It'll be tagged, I'm sure, or whatever. You can find me somewhere.
I'm not going to tag him.
So, we love you, and it's been really fun.
Yeah. I'm going to pray us out real fast, and then we're done. Jesus, I thank you for this conversation. I thank you for the work that you've done in Gabe's life and my life. I thank you for our marriage. I thank you that you have taught us so much through it. I thank you that you love marriage. I thank you that you love us. I thank you that each and every vulnerable thought that was shared here by Gabe, that you're working in that the things that were said, God, we just ask that you would divinely allow the things that we talked about to impact people. We know that it's not our words, it's not our eloquence, it's not us that really makes an impact on people, but it's you and it's your words. And I just pray that this podcast meets people where they are and helps people, God, and points people towards you and points people towards community. That would be just the best gift ever. And we're just not going to stop sharing our story and sharing what you've done in our lives. We're going to continue to testify because we know that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And we're not going to stop sharing our stories. And we know that you are going to work abundantly in us as you already have, and continue to do a work in our hearts and in our lives. And I thank you for Gabe, and I speak blessing over him and over his life and over his hands and his fingers that will be editing this podcast. It's in your holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.